Moriah was my very first interview. She's a close friend of mine, so I figured it would be more of a practice run to help me hone my interview skills than an opportunity to discover something new. I was wrong. Now, among many things, this process has shown me that I'm not a good listener. Most of us like to think that we are, and this keeps us from truly discovering the stories of others. Rarely do we offer someone uninterrupted, undivided attention, free of an agenda, judgment, or opinion. Here are a few revisions I'm personally undertaking to be a better listener. 1, it doesn't have to be give and take. At first I thought this was the only way people would feel comfortable. If I respond with my own similar scenario, interject often, or tell them something about myself. Turns out just plain old-fashioned listening does the trick. Offering silence even after they've completed a thought shows that you're not eager for them to finish so you can turn it on yourself. It invites, go on, I'm interested. Number 2, you don't have to state whether or not you agree. In fact, you can disagree strongly with someone and still listen with respect and kindness. Ending in a solution is not the mark of a good conversation. Open ends are just fine. Number 3, don't over-clarify your questions. Whenever I ask a difficult question, one that I know is asking them to go deep, I'm tempted to backpedal if they don't answer immediately. The pause is uncomfortable for me, so I offer an easy out by suggesting, perhaps you felt like this. Awkward silence is not the worst thing in life. Let them think. Let them really consider their answer. If they're uncomfortable answering it, they'll probably tell you, but most times I'm finding that the pause is really because it's unfamiliar that someone would ask a deep question and wait for the answer. That's where it gets good. I found that to be true in my chat with Moriah. Here, I thought I knew her well, but I'd barely scratched the surface. It wasn't until I was sitting, fully engaged, willing to quietly hear whatever she had to say that I truly met her for the first time. Listen in.
Okay, Moriah. You never get asked questions.
Nope.
This is your job. What do you wish people asked you?
I don't even really fully know the answer. I'm a verbal processor, but why are you the way that you are?
Yeah.
I love the students here, but no one tends to ask questions about my life before I came here. They only know the me that was here. So just things like that, what did you do in college? Or what did growing up look like to you?
Moriah, what did you do in college? What did growing up look like for you? You see what I did there?
Yeah, look at you
snuck that right in there.
Yeah. Growing up, my family looked really good on the outside. We were, I think one of my sisters said that we were the Berenstein Bears. We did a lot.
And you guys were in sports and music and all of the things.
Oh yeah, I was a 3-season athlete, still involved in the musicals.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. In junior high, it was softball, basketball, track, and volleyball one year. High school, it was tennis, basketball, track with the musical. And it was great because I was slightly a little bit more athletic than, not more athletic. I was more aggressive than my 2 older sisters. All my sisters and I were also involved in science club and we took leadership positions in FCA. We were really involved in our youth ministry and everything, growing up in the church.
It was all. How many sisters do you have?
I have 2 older sisters.
Okay, 2. Yeah. So you're the baby. But
I am
all
the baby.
3 of you were involved in everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your favorite sport? Which one did you enjoy the most?
Oh man, I enjoyed the camaraderie and the team aspect of basketball a lot. Because I wasn't the most gifted one on the team, but I was.
Girl, I'm just really proud of you. As a fellow short girl, how tall are you?
I am 5'2".
5'2". I am 5'1". So I just want to say, I'm taking my hat off to you right now and saying thank you for representing all of us short people.
We can doing
what I could not do, and that is sports.
My mom always said it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, it's about the size of the fight in the dog.
What a mom.
What a mom.
That's great.
Yeah. My dad says that I'm a chip off the old block. My mom is definitely the block in this situation. But yeah, I loved basketball. Even though it was hard, it was gritty. We had a really driven coach and constant feeling of comparison and
to the other
teammates, to their teammates and everything. Because my friends were very gifted; they could shoot better. So I was very hard on myself. Yeah.
Who was your favorite coach?
Even though he was the hardest coach, Coach McNeely. He's probably one of the hardest coaches, and either you loved him or you hated him.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes both at the same time.
Sometimes both at the same time, yeah. Because he expected more from us and everything. He wasn't content just because we were a small town.
It wasn't a participation award.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. McNeely.
Mr. McNeely.
Yeah, Mr. McNeely. He was a really solid coach, and, like, I knew that, like, I made an impact when, like, we always do these sports banquets because when you come from a small town. Like, he got choked up when he was talking about me because he was doing something special for the seniors. Because he recognized, like, my junior year, at the beginning of my senior year, I didn't start. And it's always kind of this expectation of, like, you do your time, you kind of, like, work your way up there. But there was a sophomore girl that was starting ahead of me the first couple of games. And, like, I didn't say anything, my mom didn't say anything, and that's, like, small town coaches are used to getting feedback from parents.
Oh, yeah.
But then just being, like, having grown up in a household that's, like, you will have integrity, you will work for your position, you are not given anything in this life. And just having that mentality when it came to, like, sports and everything, like, I think he saw that, and I did work my way up, and I did become, like, a more essential part of the team, which is really beautiful, and I think he saw that heart.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was a lot different back then. I was definitely even more, like, much more angry, and, like, way more competitive, way more aggressive, just, like, a lot of different things, so.
Do you think that came, from that family mentality of you will work for what you have, and then, being the baby, you obviously watched two older sisters going ahead of you.
Yeah, for sure. So, I don't know. I learned a lot, and I don't regret my childhood at the time. Like, in high school, it was pretty difficult. Like, my mom and I didn't get along, especially, like, my sophomore year. We just didn't see eye to eye, because we were both so similar, and I was the one child that wasn't, no offense to Audra and Gemma, I was the one child that refused to just take it. I would stare at her. I would just stare at my mom when she would be, like, lecturing me and everything, and, I definitely wanted to please them, but it talks about, like, what honoring your parents looks like in the Bible, and if you are holding your parents to a higher, like, position than you're holding God, that's when it's not beneficial. Didn't really know and acknowledge that then, but I definitely had my parents as idols, even though I definitely didn't always agree with some of the things that they said, but I wanted to please them more. I wanted to please God when I was in high school and early college and everything like that, so.
Did you feel like you had to prove?
Yeah, I had to prove to them, but more so in the sense, like, I'm also just as worthy as, like, my sisters. And that was the thing that, like, it's been beautiful to be able to talk to them. Like, the couple years ago, being able to have a conversation and be like, I compared myself with my sisters, and I wanted to please you like they pleased you, and all these other things. And they're like, it was good to hear, but at first I didn't receive it. But, like, they're like, we don't compare you. But yeah, because, like, my two sisters, like, I look up to them in so many ways. At that time, I was just so focused on comparison, but now it's, like, that honoring respect, and knowing that we are different. And I think that's what allows us to get along so well now, is that we're all so different. But, like, they were full-ride scholarships to Carbondale, both doing journalism, both got, like, above 32s on their ACT, like, just very... Accomplished, yeah. And, like, lots of scholarships and other things, and just both having boyfriends throughout high school and, like, all this other stuff. And I was like, I do sports, I'm a jock.
Yes.
And it was so drastically different than what they did, because, like, Audra was a cheerleader. They both did track. Jenna did golf. But then I did all these, like, aggressive sports and everything.
You're more of the tomboy of the
Yeah. I was definitely, like, the rough and tumble.
The baby and the rough and tumble. Yeah.
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 So, yeah, and that, like, that definitely shaped all of us. But again, like, now, it's just been so fun to be able to be with them, so.
And now your family was just 100% on board, supportive with the whole campus ministry decision, right? That was a smooth...
Oh, it was the smoothest. It was like butter.
Yeah.
It was such a smooth transition. But yeah, I thought about my sophomore year of college. I chose what I wanted to do. my sophomore year of high school because I was born with a cleft lip and palate, and so I just, like, assumed. It's funny when you assume you know what God wants out of your life. Like, I went through speech therapy as a kid.
Did you grow up having your parents talk to you about that? At what age were you aware?
Man. I was taken out of, like, I don't know if it was necessarily a recess, but, like, a class that wasn't super important in kindergarten, and to do speech therapy. And it was in, like, old school, and so I was, like, taken behind, like, this sketchy gym and, like, this dark locker room to do speech therapy.
Which to a kindergartner is
it's a little terrifying. It's like, what did I do wrong? But my parents did a beautiful job in not making me feel different. It was really in kindergarten that I'm like, I'm the only one that's doing the speech therapy stuff in, like, my class. And so, like, I felt different. Kids suck sometimes.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like,
the best and the worst.
Bullies, they can be so loving in one instance, but then such bullies the next instance. And it wasn't until, like, 4th grade that I started getting bullied. And it's not stuff that I talked about with my parents because I didn't want them to worry. Like, you don't want your parents to worry about you even more.
Did you feel in any way that it was your fault?
Yeah, I definitely, because, I mean, at first, like, even my parents blamed, I didn't really figure out until later that my parents blamed themselves. Like, my mom specifically, because, like, genetics and everything, because they weren't acknowledged about it. Like, I was one of the first babies in Clay County that was born with, like, a cleft lip and palate, and so they would actually take me to other families who had babies that were born with a cleft lip and palate. Like, I'd be a 3-year-old running around a hospital room, and they'd be talking and consoling the parents who just had a baby themselves. Wow. And everything, to be like, your kid will have a life.
Wow.
So, which was pretty impactful.
That's
and then
really powerful.
Yeah, and then I got older and was able to actually meet with the parents myself and talk through things and stuff. Which was just so strange as, like, like a 10-year-old, like, talking about, like...
Yeah, that's heavy. And
I think that's really what... I think the pain and the process of, like, trying to figure out myself and trying to set aside as a woman, like, self-esteem and stuff, with, like, this, and knowing now that, like, being an adult, it's been a lot easier because people are just like, okay, that's your face, I don't acknowledge it because your personality is there a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Is it weird? Do you wish that people acknowledged it more? Or
I think it's
do you think about it?
I don't think about it as much as I used to. No, I don't think about it as much as I used to. I mean, in pictures, I do. I turn a certain way. It's just because it's, like, second nature to me now to turn a certain way because I'm not fully comfortable with it, but, like, in conversations, I know that
you're not wondering, is this what they're looking at?
Exactly. My worth and identity is not found in this. Like, this is not me. It's shaped me, but it's not me.
When did you start talking to your parents about the bullying?
I was pretty feisty, so I stood my own ground. I mean, it definitely, like, hit. But I think it was more... I felt definitely more comfortable when I was in, like, high school. Not high school. When I was in college. To talk to them about it. And, like, a little bit in high school.
So it started in 4th grade.
Bullying started in 4th grade. High school, luckily I grew up in a small town, so all my class knew me. But, like, junior high, it wasn't, like, intense, but you didn't feel, like, desirable. You didn't feel wanted. No, there'd just be some, like, side comments. Like, there was one thing, like, oh, Ryan, don't smile, you're gonna break the camera, like, on picture day, and stuff like that. Or just pointing out, like, I think the reason why I was so big in 4th grade was I had one of my last surgeries, and I came back, and I was, like, bruised, and I had, like, stitching still. Because, like, I didn't want to miss out on school. And I had, like, this ridiculous-looking, like, red plastic tube sticking out of my nose to form the nostril. And so, like, going to school in 4th grade when you're bruised and, like, swollen and just not looking the best, and I didn't wear makeup until I was, like, in 8th grade. I don't know, kind of like Anna Green Gables, like, I'm not going to take your crab. But, I mean, I took the crap inwardly, internally. Yeah. So, and I think because of that, I, like, distracted myself with other things to worry about and other things to focus on. And so I didn't really, like, process how big it did impact me. Yeah. And it was, like, it was really, I don't know, it changes the way that you think, and it has allowed me to love other people who I also know struggle with, like, insecurities, like, physical insecurities.
Yeah.
A lot easier, because I'm like, I've been there. And I knew that my mom, like, hurt for me, but she kind of kept it within herself. Like, and her hurt and her worry were more focused on, like, okay, we're gonna make you have a different idea of, like, self-worth and everything. We're gonna focus you on, like, we're gonna make you driven. which again I was very grateful for. And I think because of that I was able to speak much more eloquently than a lot of the other students. Braces were a whole nother situation like that, because I had braces when I was 3rd grade to 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And I had to have this expander and this like retainer that covered all my top teeth, and like because just without having that hard palate, like my mouth was just a little bit smaller on the top, and so we had to crank it to widen it in order to put braces on.
Wow.
My mom would be the one that would take me on my yearly checkups. And she made the most of it, so we listened to Les Mis on cassette on the way up to Springfield, because we would have to drive 3 hours for a checkup that lasted like 45 minutes. And then, but we would drive to Springfield, listen to Les Mis on cassette. We would always go to Barnes & Noble to pick out a book that we could read while we're waiting. And then we'd make a game about how many interns are going to follow our doctor into the room. And like, it'd be a room like this size. And she was great. She made the best of every situation. And I think
if we're going to be here, then it's going to be memories that we're making.
That are good.
Yeah, that are good.
Yeah, and everything. And she was like, you get to pick the restaurant, what do you want to do? And yeah, she always had that mentality of inch by inch, life is inch, yard by yard, life is hard. Like, let us just focus on like what we can do today.
One moment at a time.
Yep. And that's why I thought about doing speech path. Because I would be like, I know what you went through.
Oh, yeah.
I see you. Yep. I know how much this hurts and how much you're like second guessing yourself and your self-worth, because you can't do the simple thing that every other human seems like they can't, which is communicate.
So you thought about speech therapy and
I have a degree in communication disorders and sciences. So my degree is in that. But I have to get a master's in order to practice speech path, or a doctorate in order to practice audiology. I was starting to actually go and watch speech pathologists in my area when I was a sophomore. So I did like job shadowing. And so my sophomore year, I had just gotten really invested in my campus ministry, and I was like, what if, and I didn't really feel a whole lot of purpose in speech path. And I think it's because I just didn't
Interesting.
I think it's because I just didn't feel like I was doing well in my classes. I was doing okay. But there was also like one thing that one of my professors said in our anatomy class during my sophomore year, like, and he was talking about the different disorders and things, and he talked about speech pathology, and he didn't mean to be negative, but he was very negative on talking about cleft lip and palates.
Really?
Yeah, because he was like, yeah, it's a shock to the parents, and like the parents are like getting handed this baby that's just kind of distorted and everything. And I'm like, I actually went up and talked to him about it. I was just so like, I was pretty upset. I'm like, no, this is why I'm like doing this, is like I want people to be empathetic. Because my mom and I kid, and she was like, honey, I love you, but you look like straight out of The Predator. Because that was like a movie that came out. Because like it's an open, like she could see my tongue kind of wiggling around like it's open, and like, but that's my mom. And like that was when I was older and we could kid about it because we'd been through it together. But this guy, like, and that was like kind of a wake up call. I'm like, do you want to see the people or do you want to diagnose the situation?
What did ministry look like at the time for you?
We were just living life together. If I wasn't studying and spending time in being an RA, oh man, I was spending time with like my church community. So yeah, it was good. I was like, I finally feel known for who I am and not based on like what I do, but who I am. So that was really big. So sophomore year, when I was like second guessing what I wanted to do and kind of just generally talking with my parents about it, I'd be like, well, ministry's been really like beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And they flat out saying like, there's no jobs in ministry.
So you weren't really mentioning it at the time as
I wasn't saying, I'm changing this.
You were kind of feeling it out.
They wanted me to be taken care of, and they didn't think that ministry would be able to do that.
Yeah.
And not that they thought that my worth was in my position, but they knew that stability. They really wanted stability for me. And my two sisters were like, one of them was engaged. The other one had been married for like a couple of years. And so like I was not stable because I wasn't in a relationship. I was in the middle of my college career.
The things that are quote unquote stable.
Yeah. And so I took that answer and I internalized it and I idolized my parents. And so
did you agree with that? Like you're right. That's okay.
I said that. I was like, okay, maybe that's something to consider. You're right. Inwardly I was like, this is me. But so I like swallowed that dream and that idea and like continued on with studying and I got more invested in my campus ministry with the idea of knowing that I would still try to, like, work on my studies well my junior year, but I even, like...
So it's kind of hand in hand. I can do a little bit
I
of
can
both.
do a little bit of both, knowing that I'm going to do this for my life and everything.
I can have the stables, and on the side I can do
this
ministry.
is still a part of me.
Yep.
But that junior year, it evoked even more emotion and more feeling of, like, purposeness, because, like... My sophomore year, I was in a relationship pretty much the whole entire year, and then I was like, what the heck am I doing? It's kind of distracting me from God, and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, junior year, I was, like, single again, very, very purposeful, very, very driven with my identity in, like, doing ministry. And then senior year rolls along, and then God's just really kind of hammering, like, hey, you feel a lot more purposeful in this, because I was doing... like clinicals for us, and so I had a kid that I was meeting on a weekly basis and like planning therapy for him.
Wow.
And he was a 5-year-old. He was
really
so
hands
sweet.
on.
Yeah, really hands on. Like this was his speech therapy was me, and there was a grad student that helped me out, and then at the end, like I was the one that was leading. And it was such a huge wake-up call, because I was like, I'm not so focused on your speech. I'm more worried about, like, you. There was one time that he was hiding underneath the table, and I just wanted to hold him. But yeah, and so, like, my senior year, I had taken the GRE, applying for all these grad schools, realizing, like, I'm doing this for the sake of my parents to please them. Like, shoot, I do want my parents' permission. I want my parents' blessing more than I want God's blessing. And that was a huge wake-up call. And so I had a really ugly, hard conversation with my parents, with my oldest sister and her husband, in a car on the way up to visit my middle sister. I wasn't going to bring up the conversation, because it was after I had been in the process of getting letters of recommendation from my professors and everything, because it's what I had to do. That was the next step. And, like, my mom and I were already visiting, like, different universities. Like, an hour in, after we got all, like, the shallow conversation kind of out of the way, checking up on each other, my mom was like, so how's grad school? Like, how's the process, and how's applying for that? And I was like, I'm not happy. And I'm like, I don't know. And my mom, like, I was like, what? Because I hadn't, like, she knew that I was hesitant. But I think to hear that I don't know, when it's like, you have a semester left, and then this is the next step.
Right. We've been pursuing this.
Pursuing this.
Yeah, right. This has been the plan.
For years.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been the plan, for sure. Yeah, it was a ugly car ride, because then it was just all of her, I think it was just so much of her worry was coming out in her speech, but she started spewing, and, like, looking back on it now, I know that it was because she cared and worried for me. But at the time, it was just like an attack a little bit, and I wasn't really open to what she was saying at the time, because I was like, you're berating who I am. My mom was just, she was hitting every insecurity that I had, not knowing it. And then, like, I think on accident, because of her fear for me and not being stable, she brought up the whole singleness too. And like, she was like, and you don't even have a boyfriend? Like, that was, like, one line that she said, and I was like, what does that have to do with anything? And, like, luckily I looked over, and, like, my sister had grabbed my leg. Because all I could do was just turn and, like, look out the window as, like, much as possible. I just wanted to turn behind me, just, like, so that's uncomfortable. And so, like, my sister grabbed my leg, and then I, like, glanced over, and I saw my brother-in-law just shaking his head so aggressively, like, not in agreement with my mom at all. Yeah. It was really comforting to know, like, they know me and they see me, and my parents know me and see me, but they were, like, so focused on my future and not on me. And so, like, we were really quiet. It was a rough weekend, because we were in Chicago, and, like, my middle sister wanted to, like, show us the sights and everything, but, like, that next morning...
You're going, okay, family time, let's put on the faces, let's...
Put on those masks again, like we're so good at doing. When my parents came back in the morning, like, we had breakfast, but I was still, like, processing, and I was still, like, internalizing everything, and so I was angry. And I'm, like, there just reading a book. I'm, like, I'm trying to rest because my life is friggin' hectic right now. And then Sunday, as we were coming back, I was sitting in the very, very back of the vehicle, and we were listening to worship music and everything, and I was just like, I'm just going to worship God back here. And I think it made an impact on my mom, because we got out, and again, purely God. We got out to have lunch before we were all going to go our separate ways within the next hour. And my mom looked at me as I was climbing out of the back of the vehicle, and she held the door, and I was like, oh, here we go. And she was like, let's rediscuss this ministry thing. And so, like, I wept. Like, it was just like the floodgates had opened. Because it was like, this is your permission. My mom and I walked to Barnes & Noble like we always went to. Because it was just like right across the street and everything. And so it's like, this is our safe place. This is what we did. Weeping through Barnes & Noble, telling her, like, this is where I think God's calling me. And, like, I desire your permission and I want to honor you, but this is where I feel like my heart is. And she's like, okay, then let's do this. And so we, like, walked back, and she, like, looked around the table. And she's like, Moriah has some stuff and news to share. I finally, like, could breathe for the first time in 2 years. Just being able to, like, look around the table and be like, I'm going to be applying for an internship for the upcoming year. I will graduate with my degree that I'm currently doing, but I am applying. It was really beautiful. And then within the next week, I had already done an interview and I had already been accepted. And God's been faithful through and through. And now I'm here doing what I wanted to do. And it's been really beautiful. And my parents are so proud.
There's far more to Moriah's or anyone's story than a 25-minute podcast episode. Later this week, she'll be sharing in greater detail her experience with bullying. Keep an eye on the website for that, and remember that the blog goes hand in hand with the podcast. The recorded conversations are here, but each week we're sharing written stories along with videos and pictures and other bonuses on our website, and you can even submit your own. This week, reach out to one of your closer friends. Ask about their life before you met them. Questions like, where did you go to college? What did growing up look like to you? What were your high school hobbies? Humans are made up of more than one dimension, and our stories create those layers. Until we ask to know more, we're treating each other kind of like flat Stanleys. You remember the kids' project where you photographed that paper doll in different places? Our friends are more than characters in our stories. They have stories of their own. Take time to discover their dimensions. Would you do us a huge favor? Scroll down to the very bottom of our podcast page and you'll find where you can leave us a review. This helps boost our show so more people can find it. Music for the show was created by Nathan Hall and artwork by Ashley Crutcher and Jenny Brewster. Find links to our website, Patreon, and more in the show notes below. Thanks for listening to You Never Asked.